Hi there, this is Bo.
And this is Jerry.
And this is Don't Insult My Intelligence.
It's the podcast that questions, challenges, and exposes things that just insult our intelligence.
And those things can come from anywhere. Politics, society, music, movies, television, wherever.
Yep, and we're going to talk about it all. And in most cases, it's probably going to piss some people off. Parents, be warned that this podcast is not for kids. It's PG-13 at best and a hard R at most other times.
A little background. Jerry and I have been friends since high school, and we've always thought and lived a little outside of the norm, and we generally push the edge on most topics.
Mm-hmm. And when we were young, Bo's dad, when he would bust us doing stuff, as dads will do, when we tried to argue any kind of BS explanation to him, he would just stop and stare us straight in the face and just say, "Don't insult my intelligence."
Yeah, that was one of his most frequent sayings, so we heard that quite a bit growing up.
So we thought it'd make a great podcast concept, and here it is.
So here we go.
Don't insult my intelligence.
Yes, ever since I used to sing in a band, and ever since I stopped singing, I now have a constant congestion in my throat.
So you can't sing, is what you're saying now.
Well, no, I can still sing, I guess, but just don't do it as regularly. And I used to take much better care of my voice.
Well, then
You know, I used to drink tea. You know, I had eucalyptus tea, and I had this tea called Throat Coat, which is like this. You know, it sounds great.
I was going to say, I can give you throat coat if you want. I
know. but no, I heard some interview of this with this opera singer, and they mentioned they drink this tea called Throat Coat, and they sell it in the grocery store. And damn, if I went there and there it was, and it's great because it like it gets rid of phlegm in your throat.
Well, then guess what? Speaking of that was needed last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty much. At the show
coat.
With with this band. It was horrible.
Yes, you went to a concert last night. What was that?
And I was so excited about it. I was like, wow.
Okay.
Band hasn't played here in 22 years. And loved them. And one of those things where it's like underground kind of band that was really good, and you wonder why they never made it big, and they should have, but they didn't. And I kind of like that, right? It's like, who doesn't like that? When it's like your kind of band. But wow, it was horrible. I mean, I've never in my life, like the lead singer. For one, the dude comes out and he looks like, Zach Galifianakis, and I was like, what's this all about?
But an older, because, okay.
Yeah, older, so yes, older.
You and I are pushing 50, right? Right. I mean, are getting up there, and these guys are older than us.
That's true. Not a lot, but yeah, they're older.
5 or 6 years, maybe?
Yeah, give or take, but, But, oh yeah, this dude, and it wasn't the appearance. That was a little shocking, but once the vocals started, I was just, I've never in my life been so disappointed in a performance, ever. It was horrible.
Really?
It sucked.
Wow.
But, what are you going to do? They're old. I don't know what the reason was it for. I don't know if they just don't care, if the dudes just lost it. Who knows? But whatever it was piss poor. And it was sold out, and that's what kills me. To the point where they're like rescheduling another show this fall.
Add another show. Wow.
And it's good luck.
So without throwing the band, I would, if I didn't know who it was already, I would absolutely say, well, wow, what band is it? But I feel the same way you do. I'm very shocked to hear that story because I know this band as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they were easily, when 1990 to 93, they were probably one of my favorite bands. I listened to them more than I was telling you earlier. I probably bought their first 2 CDs 10 times over.
Absolutely.
Because I would either give them to somebody or lose them, and I'd immediately go buy them because I'd have withdrawals with that, but I couldn't listen to it at least once a week.
Oh yeah, and dude, and I'm one of those people. Mm-hmm. If I'm like, this sucks, I'm like happy to jump on that train and ream you out. But I love this band, and to see it disappointed me so badly. I'm like, which is why I will never tell anybody the name, on here, because hopefully I don't want to, discourage anybody from listening to them. Maybe not live, but it's like, because they're good, and
they're great.
Well, they're
were great, and they're kind of unique, and they're good, and they kind of fell into a slot that there were no bands in. They were, sort of alternative with pop hooks.
Yeah.
And
kind of
they fell in the middle, so they would appeal to a wide audience. Like it wasn't like a metal band. You could take your girlfriend; she probably likes them too. But they're not wimpy. They're like the perfect band.
Yeah. Well, and that's
for white people. Right.
Well, and the other thing, I guess,
and I say that because it's from the 90s. But the interesting thing is their drummer was black in the 90s.
Well, that's
I don't know if he's still in the band anymore.
No, not the case now. But but that's the other thing is, but I mean, when you think
I have to take it to race. Damn it.
Well, that'll be another podcast. But yeah, but it's a shame because also, I mean, I think you would admit the singer was very distinctive. It had a very unique voice.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
And it just gone. It's gone.
Right.
I was like, wow. And I get it that you age and things change, but wow.
Right.
But you still should have basic melodies and harmony. You still shouldn't suck so bad. Just because the octaves change doesn't mean you're horrible. But not in this case.
Yeah, it's just one of the, I get it. And it's funny that you say that now I think about it. The last time I saw them, which was, I don't know, 5 years ago. I remember seeing them longer ago than that. And it was really great. And I was like, wow, they're just as good as they've ever been. And that might have been 7 or 8 years ago. But 5 years ago I saw them and it was kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
It's still good. They had highlights, right? But it was still kind of mediocre.
Sure.
And I started to think, now that I'm starting to think about it, I remember thinking, wow, maybe they've hit the wall. Maybe the singers kind of hit the wall.
Well, they hit it.
Wow.
That's
a bummer.
It was a bummer. And to make it worse is I'm in a venue where there's like the beer selection is horrible. And like their quote unquote mixed drinks are crap. It's like, it's all sugar. I feel like Jimmy Buffett was mixing me. I'm like, I don't want sweet, dude. It's like I'm not on the beach. I'm in a dirty old, theater that's like, give me, thank God for liquor and like little Dixie cups. It's like that's right. Last night I even said it. It's like, God, I wish for my birthday I'd asked for a flask. Oh my God, I could have used one. And it's like,
and I have so many flasks. I know I at least have 6 flasks, but I guarantee you I couldn't find one. It would take me an hour to find one,
Oh,
like
sure.
I use them once and they get packed away and and then when I need it, I can't ever find it.
Sure. So. Well, and normally I don't need one, but last night I needed it. Well, I mean, of course, after last night, my flask would have had been as large as a colostomy bag, but whatever. I mean, geez.
Right. But yeah, I was going to do that too. That's what I do when I go to the venues that don't have a decent bar. And a lot of venues don't have good bars. They don't care about that,
Right.
A lot of those, which is a bummer. Some do, but that's why I just go to straight whiskey.
Well,
can't go wrong with that.
That's what I did. I mean, I had no choice.
Yeah, there's no good beer.
Oh, it's horrible.
And there's no good drinks.
Right.
And I just go to. They always got Jack or Jim.
Right, and that's and luckily they had both. Even though I only catered to the one, but yeah, it was like
right.
But yeah, oh God, it was horrible. But anyway, sorry. Enough about my night.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, well, it's not good, but it's good to hear what's going on, and that's a bummer of a story. I hate hearing that being. We're both big music fans. It sucks.
It is horrible.
It makes you realize that everything we like is getting old and crumbling away.
Well, you know what though? To a degree, I'll say that. But I just went to a concert a month ago in New York City, which was not the case completely
Right.
different, but
Sure.
different type of artist, a whole different thing. So
Maybe everything we like, maybe that's not accurate. It's just certain things that we like are crumbling away.
yeah, like my liver.
Yeah. Joints and knees.
Yeah,
Also,
well, yeah,
right.
absolutely.
All right.
So what are
Hey,
we talking about?
Oh, right. So today we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about objectivity in the media and where has that gone, right? And not just that in general, but in the 70s, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was an expectation that our major media outlets adhered to, right? And that expectation was present an objective view of the news, at least to a certain degree. I guess you could always go back and argue, no, they were biased too, but in no way were they as biased as they are today. And all you got to do is jump on YouTube and just, search Walter Cronkite.
Oh, yeah.
Or search the CBS Evening News, or search, whatever, retro newscasts or something like that, and just watch a little bit of it. And you will see the difference,
Oh yeah.
And and I mean, I know you believe this as well as I, and anybody that watches is that has just gone by the wayside, which to me was one of the fundamental things that made, and I hate to even say this way, but is one of the great things about America. It's what, really in that era made America great.
Yeah.
That we did actually have a level of objectivity to the news, where it was news, like this is the news, and it was, 90% news, 10% opinion, and the opinion part was, there was a clear distinction between this is the opinion part and this is the news part.
Sure.
It wasn't all blended together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and what you're saying, I'm assuming you're referring to like 60 Minutes, right?
Yeah, well, even on the news, they would say, if you watch those old pods, they would have the headlines and the stories, and then they would have, they would have a piece, they would have an editorial piece on the news sometimes,
Right.
And say, hey, this is our opinion, or this is just a deeper story on this that had more opinion in it.
Right.
It was more of a story and less of these are the headlines.
Right. Right. Sure.
So,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those things too. I'm sure anybody who listens,
right.
a lot of you might not even, I mean, granted, Bo just said earlier that we're old. I mean, we're pushing 50, so you might not know Walter Cronkite. You might not have had any knowledge or recognition of the news back then. But like you said, it's worth going back and looking at to see the difference, because it truly is night and day. It's like it's crazy. I mean, and I get it if that's all you know, if that's all you've grown up with, and you think this is the news, but
you don't know the difference.
But it's not. I mean, it's just so piss poor, editorialized. It's ridiculous. I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
It burns my ass to no degree. I mean, I hate it. I can't stand it.
Right. And the thing that stinks is it's become the broadcast industry, in the last 20 years has become so cutthroat.
Sure.
And so, so based on revenue.
Right.
Right. That it is driving, to hold ratings is the driver, not report the news.
Yeah.
And, I think when TV first started, it started to get all about commercialism, and then the government kind of stepped in and said, hey, wait a second, there's got to be some level of public service here. And then additionally, the because it was newer, there was less focus on it, and it didn't really. You could have a news broadcast that wasn't ad generated or didn't have to carry the same weight as, say, like a sitcom does.
Sure.
Right? Now that news hour really doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it sort of does. There's local news and then national news comes on, but it's expected to carry a whole lot more of the ad revenue burden than I think it used to be as part of the model, which makes you have to go for ratings, which means you have to be more sensationalized.
Sure.
Right? Which means you have to take boring news and make it exciting, which
Right.
flirts with, lying.
Well,
which flirts with,
right.
sensationalizing.
Or you're taking something that truly shouldn't be news or isn't really news to anybody or anyone cares about and trying to make it news. I mean, and that's why, and you're right. When you say that, I didn't think about it, but it sucks because it's funny, even though the only time it's truly news is when it is truly news is when it's something that is horrific, like the whole shooting in like Las Vegas, right? That whole issue with that. It's like that was news. It was like, oh my God, and it was like, and yeah, everybody was on the same page with that. And you know what? That's when those things happen. Unfortunately, it seems to me that's the only time that they actually report the facts as they know it.
Yeah, that is an interesting phenomenon, right?
I mean,
because on that one, nobody, and I could be wrong here, and you tell me if you've seen something otherwise, but I've never seen anybody come up as a follow-up to that story and like over sensationalize it.
No. Well, because here's the deal. Something happens horrific like that. And if this were like mediocre, they would be digging into, now don't get me wrong, they're always looking, why did the shooter do this? Why did he do that? But there wasn't, you don't get the sense of them speculating as to why. It was, it's more, what happened? We need to find out the answers. Like, well, how about you find out the answers to every other motherfucking thing that goes on in the world?
I know, and report exactly. So yeah, I think there's two things here. There's regulations that are no longer in place that while they weren't in the research that I've done, and we'll get into it here in a minute, that there was no true government oversight of certain things, but there was a general broadcasting standard that spawned from these basic regulations that the FCC had, that just kind of that kind of went hand in hand with this formally mainstream sense of journalistic integrity, right? That is just no longer there,
right?
And I don't think it's because people don't want it to be there. I just think because the vehicles that we have now for media don't allow it to be there. It can't exist there because everything is clickbait and everything is ad generated. You have to have ratings so you can charge advertisers so you can make more money off of it. And you have to have a certain number of clicks on a story so you can charge a certain rate for that website.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and I agree with that. But my only thing when it comes to that, I guess, and again, I'm going back to the fact that we're old. Is when it comes, I view like the internet and broadcasted news via radio and TV differently. I do. I mean, the internet, you're already assumably, it's like, it's how much can you trust what you read and blah, 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 blah. But it's, I'm still of the age where it's like when the news comes on TV, you're expecting it to be accurate. You're expecting it to be real. And that, I mean, and as for the advertising part of it, which you've already done your research and we'll get into that. That's what pisses me off, because here's the thing. I get it. It's anybody who's business savvy and smart should try to make money off what they can.
Sure.
But when it comes to something like that, it's like, I mean, why are you going to go to the degree of making it sensationalized because it's a network, right? It's not like it's that one show looking to make the money. And so it's like you're telling me that like the Super Bowl didn't make you enough ad revenue, that like that Roseanne does it, that Friends didn't used to. Why the news? How much is the news really bringing you in ad revenue?
Right.
I mean,
and see that's the thing, because it's a consideration because there's no government regulation on it.
That's right.
But it's open to the free market, so it's going to be, its profit potential is going to be maximized every time.
Of course.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the FCC, right? And let's get into that. So let's get that out of the way, right? So we can talk about, like, I know there's people out there, and there's certain folks that believe the government, shouldn't be involved in anything, right? Mm-hmm. What are those libertarians, right? That's the main thing, right? With the Libertarian Party, they're like, no government, blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But honestly, to me, I don't think that's a workable philosophy in this day and age with the number of people we have here, right? Maybe if America was like 1,000 people, you could get away with, just a tribal that met once a month and decided, on crops and stuff, right?
Right.
But because we have so many people, you have to have streets and street lights, right? And to run those, you have to have a government. You have to have some form of government behind it. So this is the same kind of thing, and to a larger extreme. But you're talking about the FCC. So the FCC was created to replace the FRC, which was the Federal Radio Commission. Right. That was just over radio. So when TV started to come, they said, okay, we got to retool this, right? And that was in 1934 when radio started to become like a big deal. Like everybody had a radio, mass media started to affect everything. So they started to say, hey, look, you're providing a public service. There's a lot of things on here that really, people believe what they hear on the radio. We were talking about, I was listening to the podcast we did on Tom Cruise versus Tom Hanks. We got into War of the Worlds a little bit. Yeah. That actually helped spawn some of that, because that Orson Welles War of the Worlds thing, people thought, holy crap!
Oh, they were going to die.
Right. This is real, and so they and the reason that happened is because the FCC, number one, I don't think it had just been created, but they didn't have regulations on, hey, if you're doing a dramatic thing on the radio, at a minimum time intervals, you have to break in and say, this is just a play. Right. You have to tell people what's going on, because, you're providing, people don't know. And so that same kind of thing. So one of the first things the FCC did when TV first was, started to become under its governance, is they broke up NBC. Right. Because the first thing that happened, it's like this perfect example, and this is not recent, this is a long time ago. They came in and said, all right, NBC, you've already bought up all the airways. Well, that's not going to work. This industry hasn't even gotten off the ground, and you've already created a monopoly. So they busted that up and allowed ABC and CBS to come into existence. Mm-hmm. Right? So then as TV, I want to call it TV, as TV became less of a novelty and a luxury thing and more of a standard and started to eclipse radio, the FCC introduced this regulation called the Fairness Doctrine. Okay. And what that was, it was a guideline for, and at the time, there was a lot of local television because there were only a few big networks, and they had, kind of a daisy chain of broadcast networks that, beam the signal around. Right. And they just provided, like in the beginning, NBC and ABC and CBS, they didn't provide a whole lot of shows. Right. It was really just in the morning, maybe a morning show, and then most everything was at night. There's news and then in the nighttime. So you had to have that, local stations fill in the gaps. So the FCC put this Fairness Doctrine that said you need to dedicate a certain amount of time, and they let the local governments decide on that, to the public good, meaning you have to have a vehicle for folks to have news and express opinion. But whenever anybody expresses an opinion, you have to, if somebody wants to, let somebody go in there and express an opposing opinion. Okay?
All right.
Now, that is a great concept. And in 1950, it worked a little bit because people, most people didn't care about TV. They didn't, and the people that wanted to go on and debate about stuff, they were few and far between, right? So it would work out. But there are several cases where they actually had to go in and revoke licenses in certain local areas because a show would come on, like a local show, or someone would buy time on one of these local shows and get up there and say their opinion on a bunch of controversial stuff. And then the opposite view would not be allowed their time.
Sure.
Right? So court cases, license suspended, blah, blah, blah. So, but the spirit behind that is really what I'm interested in, right? And the spirit of that is you're providing a public service. So it needs to serve the public. It doesn't need to serve one special interest only. It needs to be provided, time and fairness, really, hence the name of it, needs to be applied.
Right.
So multiple views can be, expressed in the same channel.
Sure.
So to speak, right?
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. You thinking of what you're talking about, it brings up a good thing. I mean, so let's take the internet, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's as far as technology and communication are concerned,
right?
It's the next progression. It's like radio, TV, and now internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a whole lot harder, obviously, to govern the internet than it would be radio broadcast or television broadcast, right?
Right.
So, listening to you, does it make it? Should that be regulated in the same vein as like TV or radio, or does TV and radio, is it different? And in my opinion, I say it's different because, and here's a perfect example. For me, it's like when people bitch about like Trump as president, and don't get me wrong, I'm with them in the fact where he's like, he doesn't seem presidential. He's not who you want to be the face of this country, right? And I'm the same way. I agree. But with the internet,
that is a widely held opinion, but there's also other opinions on that. But
no, I'm saying that's my opinion.
Yeah, right, sure.
So, but in the same token, it's like with the internet, I'm not worried about there being any kind of governing factor, right? Because it's so broad and so vast and what you can do with it. But when it comes to my nightly news, yeah, I want you to be the face of America, just like you want Trump to be, except the difference is you're not a politician, you weren't elected, you're paid to do a job, and your job, in my opinion, should only be to tell me the fucking facts. That's all I want to know. I don't care about your opinion. I don't give a shit what you think. I don't care what you had for breakfast. I don't care how many times your wife denied you. I just want you to tell me the news, right? That's all I want.
Right. Sure. And see, I think so I think it's two parts, right? So I think, well, maybe three. So there's like two kind of categories of things.
Uh-huh.
And then there's I guess, quantitative measurement. Okay. So, and I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I believe that if you are only reaching a certain number of people, right? Maybe there's a different level of regulation. Okay. You have a little more freedom. Okay. I think. And then and this is talking about as mass media becomes what it is today.
Or
right?
a little less scrutiny, maybe.
A little less scrutiny. Yes, exactly. So, it's a range of influence, I guess.
Right.
And how much you have to consider, because what you're talking about, you kind of said there's a whole different generation of people, like you were saying, that don't watch the nightly news, that have never watched it, that don't even know what broadcast television really is.
Right.
I mean, to them, it's just what's on Hulu or what's on Amazon Prime.
Right.
You know, because that's how they get their TV. They don't even watch. They don't even know what over-the-air television. They don't even have that experience. Right.
Yeah.
And so they're watching, you know, they're watching clips of the news maybe on YouTube, or they're watching a live stream of a news channel or something like that, maybe, right? Mm-hmm. So the thing is, I guess where I'm going with that is the media content on the web is just as relevant as the broadcast content, okay?
Okay.
So, and that's just where it's all going.
But a whole lot harder to control. I mean...
Totally a whole lot of control.
Then let me ask you this. If going off what you're saying, and I hear you, because you can't, with the internet being so broad,
sure.
I mean, you can't govern everyone's actions or opinions. But maybe it's one of those things where if you're claiming yourself
right,
an accredited news outlet, right? Then you should be held to a different standard than just randomly putting something on the internet that you want to put.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting at. So that's where I was getting at. So there's two things there, right? So there's two things there. So it's so like it or not, I mean, the internet is supposed to be free, right?
Right.
And not free cost. It's supposed to be
because I pay for it, but yeah.
Right. It's supposed to be freedom of information, essentially.
Right.
Not the Freedom of Information Act, but it's supposed to be just free. Okay, unregulated.
Sure.
So, however, there are, over the last 10 years, providers, okay, that serve X percent of the population globally and in America, right? There and when I look back at the FCC regulations, what they originally came up with is that you cannot have more than 30% of the market. Okay, so I'm not saying that, but I'm saying once I think smarter people than me and you need to look at this, and I'm sure there's groups that study this all the time, because there's groups that study everything, right? Mm-hmm. That look at, so there is some threshold that says if you are the entryway to the information highway, which is what it is, right? It's just information.
Sure.
And if you have more than X subscribers, people, whatever the unit of measurement needs to be, maybe it's just throughput, maybe it's just bandwidth, right? Mm-hmm. So you know how Netflix, and I haven't seen the latest ones, but I think Amazon is catching them. But I want to say like 5 years ago, there was a study that came out when Netflix really made that big boom, like before Amazon and Hulu were as big as they are now. Like Netflix jumped out way before everybody. There was this point where Netflix had 70% of the internet traffic in the U.S. was Netflix. Of everything on the internet. Now, mostly because video is a lot, you know, and emails are really small compared to video.
Sure.
But still, that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you need to look at, okay, how much traffic and what kind of traffic are you providing? And that if you reach a certain threshold, like you're saying, Jerry, maybe then, like, because you're now Netflix and Google and Amazon, they're the new NBC, ABC, CBS.
Oh,
right?
Sure, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, yep.
And I mean, because ABC, NBC, CBS, they're piggybacking on them, and Apple, right?
Right.
You know, and the thing is, like, they're the ones that are going to survive whatever happens. Because I also heard this great little thing. Like, if you owned Apple, if one person owned Apple, right, and you cashed out its value, right, you could buy every football team in America. You could buy every professional sports team in America with what Apple is worth. Yeah. Apple's worth, like, I forget what it was, dude. It's some amazing trillions of dollars. And Apple is worth more than all of the professional sports teams in America combined. Okay, so I'm just saying, and the reason I'm saying that, and even if maybe it's not all of them, even if it's half of them, even if it's just the NFL, that's still amazing. Right?
Oh, it's huge, yeah.
And that's how much market capitalization they have or whatever. But that's the size of company this is, right? Like NBC isn't going to buy Apple, It's going to be the other way around.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah.
That's where I'm getting at.
I got you.
So if you have that much content and you have that much part of the market, I believe that you should be required to provide an objective news source. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So Netflix, just as a concept, should have a news show, right?
So you think that should be forced upon them?
It should be a regulation.
See,
yeah. Because it's becoming a public service. Now, I know it's private. I know people are going to freak out about that, but it is becoming a public service. Facebook is becoming a public service.
Sure. No, yeah, but all right, but hold on. Let's go between the two. Because Netflix is one that has nothing to do with opinion or news, right? It's just strictly content and entertainment. That's all it is.
Right.
And to be honest, I'm fine with that. It's like,
but hold on, but
Okay.
that's exactly how NBC and ABC and CBS started. It was just entertainment. It's all it was. Radio, entertainment. It's all it was, and that's all they did.
right.
Until the government came in and said you have to provide public service.
See, I don't agree with that. I mean,
Maybe not. And you know what? Other people don't agree to it either, because the reason this thing was repealed, this fairness document was repealed because people said it infringed on the First Amendment, on freedom of speech. And I guess that's you can argue that. I see that argument, because what you're doing is you're telling Netflix, and we're just using it as an example, not Netflix, but
Sure.
you're telling Facebook, you're telling Netflix,
or whoever,
hey,
right.
you have to provide this vehicle for content.
Yeah.
You're forcing them to.
Right, which I totally disagree with that. It's not their place. But on the flip side, and however crappy this might sound, I think if you're gonna, like, if Netflix were tomorrow to say, you know what, oh well, the news is sensationalized and we can make money off of that, we're gonna start reporting and we're gonna have a news program. Okay, I think that's where it's like, okay, now in my opinion, there should be a little bit of regulation and watchdog.
They've chosen to provide a news show.
They've chosen to. Well, and when I say chosen, it depends again, because there are news shows that, you know,
And there's some shows on Netflix now that you could say are like news magazine-y type. They're like, documentary style, more contemporary topics.
okay.
They're on there.
Well, I
But
get
they're not like everyday type of thing. Like
All right.
HBO has an everyday show,
Okay. Well, all right. Well, how about this? Because there's a difference between, like, The Daily Show, which
Right.
is shown to be, it's like, this is what we're doing. It's slanted. We're going to give opinions versus somebody saying, this is news. It's like, that's where I have my issue. That's where
okay.
I mean, does that make
that's
sense?
Yeah. No. I think so. But there's got to be this fine line, right? Like that's why I'm saying we need to relook at it.
Sure.
And see what was it providing? Because like you made an interesting comment, and you said you don't think it's their right, or you don't think that's their meaning the government, right? And we're really not talking about we're really not talking about the government. We're talking about the people, right? The government's just the vehicle that gets it done. Like nobody, I think, in the government is going to come in and say, because here's the thing, nobody in the government is really going to come in and say, hey, we're going to do this for the public good. The public has to demand that. The only thing government's going to do on its own is stuff that makes money for special interest. You know what I mean?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I get
You know
that.
what I mean? That's all that. So people need to demand it.
Okay, so the people then. So, but even that,
Right.
it's like somebody puts forth something, to the government, and then whoever takes it forward. It's like, but how many people really care? It's like, I don't know. I'm a big believer. It's like, no one should push anything on you. I mean, if you're not harming anybody, and what you're doing is very clearly stated as to what it is, meaning if
And that's the point, right? That's the problem. Because I think you could ask people like this last election, and I mean, damn, they pulled Facebook in front of a congressional fucking hearing.
Well,
right?
yeah, but that's for a different thing. I mean, that's
about its content, about that stuff, but still,
well, it's people's security. I mean, it's like
right, but still, it's because now forget the news, but it's because they are so their reach is so broad, they can damage people's lives. So there needs to be, or at least there's a feeling that there should be a little more regulation over companies like that. Now it's kind of like it's forging new ground, right? I mean, why else would they be there, right? Because they're not really giving people a picture of the full impact of what this does to your life, right? And telling people opinion that is misinterpreted as news does the same thing. Maybe not to as an acute degree as
right.
your information, which by the way everybody's agreeing to give. They just don't understand it.
Right. I agree.
But by giving people information that's opinion disguised as facts, is wrong.
No, it burns my ass. I mean, I can't stand it.
And that's what Facebook indirectly does. It facilitates that.
Sure.
And now it reaches 1 billion people. So now we have to think about, what is that doing? And I'm not saying that we remove content. And it gets into this next point I have called the Fair Labeling Act, right? Which was an alternative, because the other thing about this so we didn't even talk about the fairness. We got off way down a rabbit hole.
Sorry.
Right?
Yeah.
So no, that's okay. And if I bring us back up a little bit, so the Fairness Doctrine, that said, all right, these companies have to provide some level of public service and some time for public debate and opinion. So that was repealed in 1987. The FCC removed it by an act of Congress, said, okay, take that out. And really kind of the thinking behind it is that is what paved the way for the cable news networks. So in the late 70s, early 80s, so the first bill to remove the Fairness Doctrine came out in 1982. And it just took 5 years for it to pass. Okay. But it coincidentally, was proposed at the same time that CNN and the MSNBC, it wasn't called MSNBC at the time, it was called something else, I forget. But what became MSNBC and the other smaller fledgling cable networks started to become bigger and grow. And the question was, are they going to be regulated by the FCC or not? And the answer was yes, they are to a certain degree, but not under this Fairness Act. They can do whatever they want, basically. And it paved the way for that. Hence, and that kind of was the snowball that started rolling down the hill that led to where we are today.
Right.
Right? Where you have these heavily slanted and unobjective, mostly, media outlets. Now, each of them they'll tell you they're objective, but I mean, that lasts about as long as it takes for you to watch one episode of anything.
Right.
And you can easily see that they're not. And that is what's really, really, in my opinion, part of the big problem.
No, that's a huge problem.
Where it drives us into this fair labeling, right? And that's where I'm kind of going with this whole solution.
Okay. Yeah, no.
Right?
And I totally see that. Because, I mean, from what you're saying, and that boils kind of back to what I was saying, where no one watches, if you pay attention to like the Daily Show, and they're like, it's not, you might get news, but you're not watching it as the news, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, because I'll sit here all day long and watch, Bill Maher. And I know that's not the news. I'm going to get news from it. But, and yeah, there are times he cracks me up. There are times I'd like to smack him in his mouth.
Sure.
But I don't look at it like he's putting it out there
Yes.
as its fact. I mean,
That's right.
He says it, but I don't get that opinion. Where like Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, he puts it out like it's fact. And that son of a bitch, I'd like to kick him in his fucking mouth. I mean.
That's right. Well, okay. So what you're doing there is you're giving two great examples of how I believe this Fair Packaging and Labeling Act idea should be applied to mass media.
Okay.
Okay. And because just like you're saying, you watch The Daily Show, right? And you watch Bill Maher, those shows are fairly labeled, in my opinion.
Right. I agree.
They're like, like The Daily Show is, oh my God, I keep saying like. I say like so much. Holy shit, I got to stop saying like. I need like, and I just said now, I need like a like meter. That's exactly what I just about said.
Where's Where's my buzzer? All right.
Holy crap. I need some kind of cranial implant that just shocks me before I say it. It reads it as it's coming to my, I hate it. It drives me crazy.
I have a dog collar that can take care of that after the fact, though. But
yeah, that might help. I need to start with that, I think. I say like so much. Anyway, when you watch The Daily Show, you know it's satire.
Correct.
Saturday Night Live, Bill Maher, they're fairly labeled, okay? Just like you're saying, the cable news shows are not fairly labeled.
No, you're right.
So that's kind of what I'm saying. Stuff on Facebook is not fairly labeled.
Right.
So this thing here is there was an act that was put in place a long time ago called the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act.
Okay.
And it requires that all consumer commodities bear a label with an accurate statement identifying the commodity. If revenue generating commercial broadcasts, right? And that's the whole thing. If revenue generating commercial broadcasts are a commodity, then they should be accurately labeled. And when you start to define a commodity, it's something you sell for money. Right?
Yeah.
So what do they do with those shows? They sell the time on them for money. They sell them for money.
Right.
They're a commodity.
Right.
And I guess the argument has always been these technicalities. Like, no, they're not really a commodity, blah, 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 because you're selling time on them and but it's all bullshit. Of course they're a commodity. Right? And so they should be fairly labeled. And I think that is the problem. Folks.
Yep.
They're not doing it intentionally. Some folks are just dumb and they believe everything they hear. And then some folks obtain information on the fringes of stuff. They obtain it through osmosis. They obtain it from what people hear and what they sort of read and sort of kind of pay attention to. But it's almost like it needs to be color coded. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No.
For people to know this is opinion.
Okay. And that one I'm all on board for. Like the whole before where it's like the government, it's like you have to produce this. I don't have to produce shit. I mean, you can't tell me what. But this, where it's like, well, if you're going to produce this, you have to label it as such. I mean,
well, right.
And that makes, to me, that's fair. Because you know what? It gives you the option. It's like, it's like what you're going into. So I'm cool with that.
Right. And I think that is where I was talking about before. That kind of leads me back into my levels idea. That if you reach a certain number of people, then the stringency to where you're held to these standards is increased. Because your influence is much broader.
It's more massive. Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So Facebook and Twitter, those should be kind of the models that we use. So if we can't apply it to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, then it's not going to work. Then we need a different model.
Right.
So if we're going to say, okay, we're going to label internet content, or we're going to regulate these companies, and essentially, we're going to force them to fairly label things, then by law. So we're going to vote on it. It's going to go through Congress. It's going to be a thing added to the FCC. If it won't work for those, then it's not going to work.
Right.
Right.
No, I'm with you.
So, and then that would also apply to the cable news shows and the network news shows.
All of them.
So,
yeah.
right.
As it should.
Yes.
I mean,
and you know what? And you don't have to have them. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm with you on that. You don't have to have them.
Right.
In my opinion, unless the American people say we want an objective news show and the fair market, the free market is not delivering it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But until we're to that point, then, you know.
Well, that's part of the problem we go back to from the beginning when we were talking.
Right.
What do people, anyone who doesn't know what true news was like, they think it's new. It's like, how do you know? I mean, I think that's part of the whole thing. It's like, you know, all this crap, fake news. Like I've said, all news is fake. I mean, all of it. I don't give it whether you're
to a certain degree, yeah.
Whether you're right or left, to me, it's fake because once the first 5 minutes, you're reporting what happened, and then after that, it's all slant. It's like, it's bullshit. It's such crap.
Right.
I mean, and like
Yes.
I told you before, I mean, honestly, and if this gives people who don't know the difference any kind of like meter to base it off of, Entertainment Tonight gives me straighter news than the regular
Right.
news. I mean, because it does. Because like, you know, whatever, you know, Tim McGraw humped his wife, Faith Hill, last night 12 times. And they corroborated it. It's like, wow, guess what? That's true. You know, so-and-so lost his voice. Okay. And that's the end of it. That's true.
At least it's news. Yeah, it was news.
And you know what? Other than, like, that's a shame. There's no other opinion on it. It's like, it is what it is. Granted, it's talking about stuff that really doesn't matter in the world, but whatever. I mean, it's still a fact.
Right. Yeah, and that's this trend, or that's this evolution that's happened with our quote-unquote news outlets.
Right.
The news isn't good enough for ratings. Because, you know, when you're young, what was the thing that people said about the news when you're young? It's boring. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't like the news. Boring. Mom, Dad, I don't watch the news. It's boring. Well, yes, it's boring. Because most stuff that happens that's actual news is boring.
Sure.
Some stuff's exciting, but it's really, you know, it's a different kind of news.
Well, but
You know?
but in that situation, you're also a child. I mean, when we were kids,
Well, sure.
it was all.
But my whole point there is that most adults are just big children. You know, I mean, look at anything. What gets the most ratings of anything? You know, exciting, childish crap. What movies are the biggest movies? Childish crap movies.
Right.
You know, it's what people want. People like childish crap.
Right, but you know what? But that's it. Well, you just hit it. That's the difference. Like movies, you're right. Because it's all make-believe and fantasy. I don't want that for my fucking news. It's like, no.
You don't want that. But
Well, I would hope that most people don't want that. I mean, honestly, like I told you before, oh my God, I wish, I mean, I couldn't have a drinking contest with this because everybody would be, like, their liver would explode. But if you sat there and watched the news, and it's like, this Group A takes a shot every time they talk about something that's important dealing with North Korea, you take a shot. Group B, every time you hear the national news talk about Stormy Daniels, you take a shot. And guess who's going to be drunk? I guarantee you. It's like, and who cares what some damn porn star did? I don't care. I mean.
Right. Well, yeah, now that's a whole different topic, but yes.
Well, is it though? Because they make it news, and I don't think it's really news. I mean, it's not news.
Well, okay. Well, that I mean, I have a little bit of different opinion. So,
okay. Well, let's hear.
Someone suing the president. Okay, an individual. You know, bringing up allegations or threatening to sue the president, I don't care what president it is, I don't care what the profession of that person is, that's news. Because you're talking about the most famous person in the world, the most powerful person in the world.
Right.
Someone is going to sue them.
Sure. Like
that is a news item. Like, wow, something's going on there. That's maybe might affect the government.
Okay.
So that's kind of news. But I know where you're going. The point is you're making is it's news for a reasonable period of time.
Well,
and
it's
as long as additional information is coming out about it. It's like, hey, here's breaking news. This is happening. Now we're on to the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
Then 3 or 4 days later, there's new stuff that's happening with that. And here it is.
Right.
Like, and then the story develops.
Like we have a sketch artist. It's like about who she spoke to. Who cares? I mean,
right.
It's news. You're right in the sense that it involves the president of the United States, and there's a lawsuit. But you know what?
Right.
To me, there are different degrees too. It's like, but sensationalize what is important. It'd be like if somebody sued the president because 10 years ago he ran over their dog and like hushed it up, and then all of a sudden now he's president and that person came forward. It's like, oh, you killed my dog. It's like, okay, I hit your dog with my car. I'm sorry. It's like, why is that? But you know, or different. The president, like, oh, well, he snuck into my house in the middle of the night and raped me or mass murdered my family. That's a whole different thing. This is a lawsuit against he had sex with me. And the thing is, I don't even know, at this point, it's so convoluted. What is the whole issue?
Right. Exactly. Yes, that's a great point. That's been lost, right, in the media's attempt to milk as much as they can out of the story for ratings.
Right. But I'm asking, what is the initial issue? That he had sex with me or not? I mean,
no, that he paid the hush money for her because she was going to come out during the campaign.
Okay, so he paid her to be quiet.
Exactly. And the issue is how those funds were allocated.
Okay, and you know what? Right. When there's proof on that, and if it's that's a story.
That's a story, exactly. And here's the thing. You are the perfect example of that because you know nothing about it, but that's all you hear about, right? But you know nothing about the real deal behind it because the thing behind it is fucking boring.
Right, and who cares?
The exciting parts is that she's a porn star. Right? That's what's exciting about it because people want porn stars on TV.
Well, dude, it's and go ahead.
And the length of this story on its own merit is like 3 days.
Right.
And the thing is it's been in the same general state that it's been now for a month, yet it's in the news every day.
Every day. Right. And it's, well, dude, and I've said this to you before, to me it's no different since that's a sex scandal. It's no different than like the Bill Clinton thing with Monica Lewinsky. It's like, okay.
Right.
But here's the deal, and this will go to show and should prove that situation where the news is going. Because with that, what was the issue? To me, the issue was you're president of the United States and you're using your power to abuse someone, potentially. I mean, it could have been willing, it seemingly was, but whatever. Would it have been as willing if you were the plumber for the White House? Probably not. Right. Well,
yep. And veering off into that, and you know what? There's another whole podcast I want to do, and it's about integrity and aptitude of the president.
Oh, right? That's absolutely.
Definitely what I want to do. But see, the thing is, it means two different things. So back during the Clinton era, back during the Clinton era, there was still a thing where there was still a debate on the president should be held to a higher standard. You know, being the leader of the free world, you should we should elect a person with integrity. And that whole Monica Lewinsky thing, I mean, the thing they were getting him on was lying about it, right? That was the technical thing that they were getting him on, right? They wanted to get him on a perjury and then impeach him because of blah, 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 blah. But what it started to uncover is that was his thing. Like, that he had this history of all these affairs while he was in office with, underlings, especially when he was the governor of Arkansas and different positions that he had. I think he was attorney general of, Arkansas too. And during all that, like, he had all this stuff going on, and that was like his deal. And all these people knew all about it. And so it started to unravel that. But now we're in a whole different ballgame. The baseline is so low now.
It is low.
That it doesn't even matter anymore. But, But again, back to your point, like, the issue is if the allegations in the Stormy Daniels piece, and my apologies if I'm getting a little bit wrong, because I'm also not 100% up to speed on it, but I believe if the allegations hold true, then the Trump campaign committed a major crime.
Absolutely. Oh,
as far as campaign funding laws go, which are a big deal.
Yeah, they should be. So, absolutely.
Right. So that's the story.
Right, but you know what? It's funny. 3 months later, you turn on the news, you hear her name. Is that mentioned? Is that talked about?
Right. Yeah.
No. Right. Fuck no.
Yes. Exactly. So back to the point on maybe labeling, right? Mm-hmm. Is that be great if there was some way to do that?
I agree. Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. Well, I think those are the big things that I covered, and I just to kind of sum them up, right? So there was, back in the 40s and 50s, it's like these mass media outlets, although they were primarily for entertainment, they did serve a basic communication function.
Yep.
Which they no longer really do, because there's other things that have come and replaced that. Like, news and items can spread organically on their own. You don't have to listen to beep, 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 breaking news. You don't need that anymore. Right? Everybody can get the real items. Are tornadoes coming, it's going to rain, there's a fire, all that stuff. We've taken care of that with technology. People know about that. They don't need, so, these other things, have kind of eclipsed the need to really regulate what content providers provide. Sure. But then you get in the whole, what's decent, what's obscene, all that, it's the same kind of thing. It's gonna vary. And I love the quote on that is, they asked some senator, I forget who it is, to define what pornography was. When they were trying to get, Larry, they were trying to get Hustler removed from some county. Okay. And the senator said, I don't know, but I know it when I see it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Right? Yeah. And that's kind of that. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, I don't know, but I know it when I see it. But we need to look at, because the landscape is changing and the whole paradigm is changing, and I think you'd be hard to find somebody that didn't think Facebook and Twitter have an influence on the elections, because it sure looks like they do. Mm-hmm. Right? And without labels between fact and opinion, and almost a re-education needs to occur on what facts are, right? Yeah, because facts and opinion should not, they don't blend.
No, not at all.
They're two different things. You can have opinions about facts, but opinions are not facts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They're an opinion. They're up for debate.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that.
So, and if you talk to any kind of scientist or anybody that's a statistician or anybody that does anything with logic, they will tell you there's no such thing as an alternative fact. It doesn't exist.
Right.
It's an alternative fact is false.
Right. Of course it is.
Right. or it's not either. It's in the middle. It's undecided. It's an opinion. It's something yet to be proven.
Right.
So that's what's alternative. The alternative to the truth is false.
Yep.
So
no, I'm totally with you on that.
And it's this whole thing. It's just this. So anyway, I think that that there needs to be, I guess, hopefully we'll get to a point where we'll realize, oh my gosh, we need to have more journalistic integrity again, which we didn't even really talk about.
Well, yeah.
That sources need to be checked. I mean, that's one of the things that that at a certain time newspapers did pretty diligently, and some still do. You don't publish a story unless it's been corroborated.
Well,
and then there's a process to doing that.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah. I'm saying newspapers might do that, but
right. But even that's becoming a little looser. You see more and more, challenges to those as well. And again, because they're a dying industry, they're trying to stay alive. But but newspapers have always been better at labeling their content.
Right.
Because it just kind of goes along with the newspaper. It's like, here's the sports section.
Right.
Clearly labeled with a label at the top.
Well, you know what?
Right?
But here's the thing. Like, broadcast networks can do the same thing. I mean, you have the news, the weather, the sports, and then you can have editorial. I mean...
Exactly. Yes.
Why can't you do that?
Yes. And that's what these shows are. And that's what all these shows are on the cable news. They're editorial shows.
Right.
And they need to say... You know what? I think we've hit on something here. It needs to say that. Right? Like an editorial show... They used to do these things with driver's licenses, and maybe you remember this. If you were under the drinking age, the background of your driver's license was a different color. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
And you know what that is? It's a label. That's what that is. It's a label.
Right.
It's easy to identify. You look it up, underage. Boom.
Yep.
Right there. Don't even need to... I see it. Same thing. Maybe these opinion shows... Maybe the set needs to be like green, or yellow. That'd be funny. But, or, purple. It needs to have like a mauve, purplish hue. And then okay, this is an opinion show because it's purple in the background. That way I know this is opinion.
Or maybe Americans just need to fucking wake up and be smarter than they are. I mean, it's
no, sorry. That is not going to happen. You got to smash people over the head with stuff.
It's almost sickening that we're like one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And in my opinion, one of the dumbest. We're the dumbest. I mean, it's like, are you kidding?
Mm-hmm.
Drives me nuts. I love it though, but I love my country.
Yeah,
but we're idiots.
Well, I mean, see, that's the thing. And I don't mean to deviate too far from the topic, but this is, America's a young country. It's an experiment, and look at it. You can look at it in smaller segments, and it's what happened to people. Like, there's this interesting study, and I'm just talking out of my ass here. This is opinion, everybody. Okay. And I don't have the facts in front of me, so color this purple.
In some mediums, this is news, but go ahead.
Exactly. So this is purple, but I remember hearing about a study that they looked at I'm just struggling what to call it, the inheritors of fortunes. Okay. Never, hardly ever do they take what their successful parent did and grow it. Right? It always declines because they don't have an incentive to do it. Right?
Sure.
And that same kind of concept, I think, applies to the mass population of America.
Right, our country, sure.
Right, and it's not because all of our parents are rich. I mean, because our country in general is rich, right? We're the beneficiary of the hard work of the generations before us.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Of the success of the country. So we're not incentivized to be smart, right? It's actually quite the opposite sometimes. So the natural tendency is for everybody just to take what they got. Oh, that's the way it works, man. Okay, whatever, man. You know?
Yeah.
And you just go with that. And I think that's just kind of the natural order of the way our society functions right now on a multi-generational time scale.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You know, and what's going to wake us up from that? Some type of threat.
Yeah. Well, that's all. I mean, that goes back to what I was saying with the news. It only comes back to real news when there's any kind of real issue.
Right.
Where it's like everybody's like, I mean, you know, it was kind of a joke, the whole 9/11 thing. I mean, I know it wasn't the point of it. I know the point of it, you know, they proved their point. But it was like, wow, America came together. Of course. And we did. It was great.
Yep.
You know, we're good with that.
That's
but
right. Everybody
everybody was like, oh, this is a turning point. I'm like, nah. All this is like, oh, yep, we're here, and then day-to-day comes in, and we're going to go back to be stupid, lazy, and dumb. I mean, it's like, that's...
Right. Right. There's only a natural duration, you know, that people need. They need that incentive on a regular basis. That you know. So, and I think that whole nationalism and resurgence of patriotism after 9/11, I think it lasted about a year, you know, and it started to, you know, maybe a year, maybe not quite a year. And then it started to wane a little bit, and it started. I mean, because people realized, okay, we're not under a sustained attack,
Right.
you know, everything's gonna be fine. All right, you know, and hey, firefighters are cool. They did a good job, man. We like the police a little bit more for a little while, and then right back to normal.
Right.
You know, and firefighters are still, they've gone back to their normal level of coolness. I still think they're like the favorite public service people, right? But they're not back. They've lost their superhero status.
Oh, yeah, I agree with
You know?
that. Yeah, sure.
That they had for a while.
Right.
So,
And
you
now,
don't see them. You don't see them blasting down the street anymore with like a full size American flag hanging out the back anymore.
nah.
They quit doing that.
Right.
You know. So, but yeah. Unfortunately, that's the problem, and we got the only way to sustain that hey, let's go fix some stuff is a continuing
Problem.
a continuing like acute problem, or it's something that's, you know, really impacts people's day-to-day lives.
Right.
Like if you turned off, like if something happened, you know what would really fix? Something happened where the internet cut off for like 4 hours a day. That would get people riled up, man.
Oh,
People
yeah.
would do whatever they had to do.
Yep.
So.
Yep. No, I agree with that. God.
But yeah, seriously. So, damn. Why can't we have? We need labels. We need objective news.
Yeah, we do. And you're right. I think labels are the way to go. I mean, it's no different, like you said, than the movies. It's like, rate it, you know, but
Right.
put it out there. It's like, this is
Rated
satire.
R.
Right, this is satire. This is
Right.
satire with some of this. This is real news.
Yes.
And then this is slanted news. I mean, whatever. I mean, however
You're
you want to
right.
label it, but yeah, label it.
You know what? That's another good point that you make. So like when you see, that'd be an interesting study to do, where you show people movie trailers, right?
Uh-huh.
Because movies don't say, some of them might say, this is a great new comedy from director, whatever. Some of them say comedy in the trailer.
Right.
Or horror movie or whatever.
Right.
But most don't. Most just show you something about the plot.
Right.
And there's a voiceover, but they don't tell you the genre.
Right.
Right? Most. So it'd be interesting to show people movie trailers that don't just tell you what the genre is, and I bet most people could figure it out, right? Because they're indirectly labeling things. You know, like, this is a comedy. This is a horror movie.
Right.
This is a drama. This is a suspense. This is a Western or whatever. They show you that. And it'd be interesting to see, you know, I would guess it'd be in 90% or higher. People get them all right.
Sure.
But it'd be interesting to see what the stats are on that. And it's like, why couldn't you have the intros to shows be like that? You know?
Yeah.
To news shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? I don't know. I mean, even the Daily Show, just the intro alone kind of gives you a hint that it's satirical.
Of course.
So.
Right. Where like 60 Minutes does not. It's like.
That's right. Yeah, it's serious.
Right. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all crap. I mean, whatever. If you're going to, at the end of the day, if you're going to talk about the news, then be accurate and be fair about it. And if you can't, then make it clear that you're not. I mean, that's, I don't know.
I agree. And if I mean, I don't know. I hear you on the, you know, I think you're a little more libertarian on this than I am. I think this is an area where we need some government interaction, in my opinion. We need a stoplight at this intersection, in my opinion.
Sure.
You know? Or at least a pretty big speed bump. Or make it a 4-way stop sign or something.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean,
you know, because there's a lot of T-bone collisions going on.
Right.
You know, and people are being hurt.
Well, all I can say is,
I think so.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's like, you know, at the end of the day, rest in peace. You know, God bless Walter Cronkite, and Chuck Todd. You can kiss it. I mean. You suck. Tell
me. All right, so we're winding down this one. We're an hour and 15 minutes, or about an hour. So, tell me the thing on the Chuck Todd, because I you know, if you remember what was that all about? The one that got you spun up.
Yeah.
And remind everybody who Chuck Todd is and what state and what show he has and all that.
Yeah, that I can do. Chuck Todd is the well, to a degree. Chuck Todd is the moderator of Meet the Press on NBC, and who I used to love Meet the Press. Like when Tim Russert was amazing. I loved him. He was great. Chuck Todd is, I mean, there are times like I've had like bad bowel syndrome and look at the toilet paper after the fact. I'm like, wow, this looks better than Chuck Todd. I just can't. I can't stand him because he's so opinionated, and I do forget. I know, and it's funny because that was what sparked this podcast a while back because I was livid and just pissed because I was like, God, you're on the news, you're sitting here, and I want you to be hard on every party involved. Sure. And not to say that he wasn't, but he just, I can't remember, God, I wish I could remember the topic, but he kept interjecting his own personal opinion. I'm like, I don't care what your thoughts are. I don't care what you, I mean, it's, you know, that's no different. If somebody put me on the news, it's like, oh, you think it might be entertaining for me to be an asshole to whoever I'm talking to. And it might be for a short time. Right. But if you're talking about real news, it's like, no one gives a crap what my thoughts are. They just want to hear the facts.
Right.
And that drove... Yeah. It was something about him that drove
me. The issue is Chuck Todd, in your opinion, at least on that particular show, he's hurting kind of the legacy of Meet the Press.
Absolutely. Horrible.
Right. And who was his predecessor? Russert?
Tim Russert was the guy that loved him. He was great.
Yeah, I remember that. because he was more objective. He was the moderator.
Absolutely. He was somebody that here's the deal. I want, with my news people, it's great if they're likable, right? That's awesome. But when they report something, I want to walk away not knowing any agenda or political affiliation or whatever from
Right.
them.
Right.
And that's what I got with him, and you don't get that from Chuck Todd.
Right.
I mean, Chuck, like I said, I have toilet paper that, dirty toilet paper speaks better than him.
Is it because, do you disagree with him personally, or do you just disagree with what he's doing in general? Like, he shouldn't be interjecting his opinion.
Well, all right. So here's the deal. To be fair, I disagree with what he's doing, but no differently than I did. And well, see, here's the deal. I can't stand Bill O'Reilly.
Right.
Of course, he's gone. But even with that, I mean,
right.
With Fox News, it's like, I don't care what their tagline is. We all know where that's coming from. We know the slant on that, right? This guy's NBC.
Their tagline is fair and balanced.
Right. Well, here's the balance. It's all tipped over and everything dipped up. It's bullshit. But,
it's kind of funny.
But right, it's a lie. I mean, but I didn't. I guess because he worked for Fox, he irritated me, but not to the degree that Chuck Todd irritates me. Because you work for NBC, you work for one of the major 3 networks. I know in this day and age, ABC, NBC, CBS are no different than AMC, anything else on cable. I mean, I know that.
Yeah.
But to me, again, like you had said earlier, I hold you to a higher accountability.
Sure.
And you piss me off. And just also, there's something about him personally where I'd like to, just smush him like a bug, but whatever.
Sure.
I just don't like him.
Well, we'll have to go figure out, because because Meet the Press, it comes on once a week, right?
Every Sunday morning. Yep.
Every Sunday morning. So we could probably find the one that really made you mad. We could probably walk it back. I'm sure it's on YouTube. So, and then maybe we can do a little supplemental of this one once you refresh your memory.
Sure.
Maybe we'll do that at the intro of another podcast.
Yeah, and I might not need to have to go back that far. I can just go back to last week, and I'm sure I'll get this off.
No, I want to hear the one that got y'all spun up, because it got us talking about this. Hey, one other thing on this before we wrap it up. If you've never seen it, I think there was a great kind of take on this whole subject that HBO did, the show The Newsroom. I don't know if you saw that. With Jeff Daniels. It was really good.
Oh, I heard about it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was real good. And it was a bummer that it didn't. I think it had 2 seasons, but I really liked it because it was supposed to be what would happen if a rich kind of, or a corporation, just stood up a news channel that was completely unaffected by ratings and advertising revenue. And they brought in, so Jeff Daniels plays this guy. And honestly, the first scene of the show is a pretty popular internet meme. And people thought it was real for a long time because it was so awesome, where some, a college student stands up and gives the basic, isn't that what's so great about America? La, 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 and Jeff Daniels just destroys them, right? And just goes through this whole tribe of, we used to be first in this, and now we're 32nd. We used to be this, and now we're 50th. We used to be that, and now we're 9th out of, blah, 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 blah. We're last. What are we so great at again? And that was the thing. And it was great. And that was like him, he had this big speech, and then they hire him to be the lead anchor on this new news show. So it was really cool.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and I bet you've seen that meme out there because it's actually more famous than the show ever was. But that was it was a great scene. But anyway, it's the struggles of what, how they try to remain independent and objective. And how they keep trying to, they get threats, their lives get threatened. Big tobacco, big pharma, all the big special interest groups are trying to shut them down, trying to sue them, trying to set them up, trying to destroy their integrity. The whole thing. I mean, it's a really, really good show.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it was a bummer and it was about this whole thing, and it's like without government regulations, something like that just will never exist. You can't fight that many Goliaths.
Right, right, yeah.
And that's kind of what, not as a spoiler alert, that's what the show was about. But
right.
It was awesome.
Well, damn, thanks for the plug on a show that's been discontinued. But
it's already canceled. But it's out there on HBO. You can watch it if you have HBO on demand.
We'll go back. I'm sure Jeff Daniels will love it.
Oh, yeah. It's excellent.
Yeah, I'll check that out. That's cool.
All right. This has been a good talk.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to have I definitely want to go into the whole aptitude and capabilities of the president and who should be and who shouldn't be. I think it's time to talk about that one again.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. And I mean, there's a big, I mean, that's a huge thing. I mean,
right.
And I think I'd be a good one to talk to that because I have very conflicting opinions on that. It's like,
yeah, me too. See, I think we can ride the wave. I think we're kind of just rolling on momentum right now. But I don't think we could have a Trump, Oprah, Kanye, you know what I mean, in a row.
God.
I think we'd be done, man. Just not anything against those two. Who knows? Oprah might be better. But you got to have somebody that understands how large, giant organizations work. Just forget politics. You gotta have someone that understands how giant bureaucracies function.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you wouldn't want somebody running your train system that had never run a train system before. There's things that that you need to have experience about, before you just jump into the number one job on shit.
Yeah, that opens a whole nother door. I've had that
argument
with people. All right, I don't want to get into that whole
I know.
That's a whole other one.
I opened up a can of worms.
But
all right. Well, don't insult my intelligence. Everything is mislabeled in the media.
Absolutely. Please don't just randomly watch something that you think is news and believe it to be fact, because I guarantee you it's not. I guarantee it. I mean, you're going to get like maybe at best 25% fact, and the rest is editorialized.
And get out of your echo chamber. Watch all of you conservatives. Watch a Bill Maher every once in a while. Just get a different viewpoint. And all you Bill Maher people, watch. Who's your guy on Meet the Press? Was it Todd? Whatever.
Oh no. But Chuck Todd.
Whoever.
Chuck Todd.
Watch the opposite side. Watch some stuff in the middle. Watch BBC America every once in a while. Watch Al Jazeera.
Yeah,
get a different opinion on shit.
I will say you're right. That's part of the problem. I mean, because look, like I said, there are a lot of times Bill Maher just rakes my coals.
Me too.
I'm like, oh my God, shut up. But on the flip side, it's just like everybody else. We're all human. And everybody has different opinions. And there are times when I'm like, damn, I'm right there with you.
Yep.
It's like, and it doesn't have to be this side or that side. It's like, be your own individual and just go off what you truly feel and think. I mean, God.
Exactly. And the thing is you don't have to hate people because one of their opinions differs from yours. Someone's opinion on something doesn't define their entire person.
Absolutely. I mean, my God, you eat tomatoes.
I know.
I don't hate you.
I know.
It's like, I mean,
I know, right? You give that to me. You let me have that one.
I have a strong opinion about tomatoes. It's
exactly.
I mean,
that's right. See, if we can bridge that gap, anything can happen.
That's right.
But I'll give it to Bill Maher. You know what? That dude, he's got a set of balls on him. He will call out anything.
Oh, sure.
I like that. And that's what I like.
Yeah.
I like that. Even if it's wrong or even if it's completely off base, I like that. And I respect that.
I do too, and the fact that he can back it up by going, "Hey, it's my opinion, and it's an opinion-based show."
Yep, and you know what? I don't watch as much of it, but even Tucker Carlson, right?
Oh, sure.
I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says, but the guy's got balls.
Yeah.
And he calls stuff out that he believes needs to be called out, and I respect that.
Right.
So
even though he's on a show, or at least a network, that's claiming their news when...
Exactly. Another one. His show is 100% opinion. It's the Tucker Carlson opinion show.
Right, and that's what it
fine.
should. But it should be labeled as such, like you said.
Yes, just like this is the Don't Insult My Intelligence opinion podcast. This is our opinion on shit.
Right.
You know?
Oh, I thought mine was fact, but okay.
Well, we try to base it in fact. I try to list some facts. It's some of the things we try to base stuff on facts. We're talking about, the FCC regulations. It's facts. But,
right.
Okay.
But yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, it's don't insult my intelligence.
Exactly.
And it's the emphasis on my intelligence. It's my opinion, my thought process. And if you don't like it, then you can go watch Chuck Todd.
Exactly. Right after you fuck all the way off.
And God help you. I mean, Jesus.
All right. Awesome.
All right, cool.
Well, until next time, don't insult my intelligence. Facebook and media and mass media and NBC and MSNBC and Fox News.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So all 5 of you watching and listening, you better pay attention.
Exactly. Like and subscribe to the podcast if you listen to this. All right. We're out.
All right.
Later.
See ya.